lovelies, and welcome to this week's live class in the Strong and Centered group. I love having you all here, and I hope that you are enjoying doing the classes. So today, instead of doing an actual class, because I'm not feeling great, I thought this would be a good opportunity to do a bit of a workshop on breathing, because for obvious reasons, right, breathing has become a pretty important thing, both for our wellness, our health, and because, I don't know about you, but there is just a lot of anxiety and shallow breathing going on. If you can hear me, if everything's okay, please just let me know in the comments. Let me check that things are happening okay, because we had a false start the first time. I'll wait a couple of minutes, see if anybody else pops on and can let us know if they're hearing everything okay. So what is awesome about breathing is that it's something that is so under our control, right? And because it is such a basic human thing going on in the body, it's really, really super important that we are doing it right. And you're probably thinking, well, how can there be a wrong and a right way to breathe? Well, there actually is. I don't like to use the term wrong or right. I prefer to use the term optimal or suboptimal, because, right, you've been managing to breathe and breathing just fine up until this point in your life, and now here I am telling you, well, let's look at how you're breathing and maybe we can see if you can breathe better. Why I love focusing on breathing, and breathing is really, it's after alignment, it's the second most important thing that I teach and work through with my one-on-one clients, because it's such a foundational function going on in the body that just getting that right or improving it is going to have such a huge impact in terms of your wellness and your function and your brain cognition and your mood and your level of fitness and even your metabolism, because like oxygen is everything, right? It is the bomb. But what we don't realize, and certainly not something that I was terribly aware of before I started this movement work, is that breathing is a movement. Breathing is a movement. There are a whole lot of muscles involved in allowing us to breathe. There's muscles and bones and tendons and all sorts of things going on, and they're all working at the same time. And importantly, they need to be working in tandem and in a synergistic way in order for breathing to have the most value for your body. And again, why I love focusing on breathing is that it's a quick fix. It's a quick way through. Hate using the word fix, but it really does give you like most bang for your buck. And it's something that we really have control over. So you probably haven't given breathing much thought. Interestingly, we breathe about 23,000 breaths a day. And actually, yes, there are better and suboptimal ways to breathe. Because most of us, just for various reasons, which are exacerbated by our current crazy times, are stuck in a very shallow breathing pattern where instead of using our breathing muscles optimally, and I will go over what those are, we're just very much in kind of this chesty or belly pattern of breathing. So just to go over what the breathing muscles are, I'll kind of illustrate for you on my skeleton where they are. And if you're interested, I'll put a link. There's some beautiful breathing simulation models so that you can see how this whole system is a canister, and that it actually impacts so much. It can really, really affect back health, and particularly pelvic floor health, especially when it comes to things like leaking or prolapse, if that's a thing that many of us do end up getting. I know I certainly have the leaking thing. So where those breathing muscles are, it's a combination of a few muscles that all work together. Sitting under the rib cage here, you have your diaphragm. And when you breathe in and out, I'm just kind of like simulating this model, it's like a jellyfish that kind of sits under your rib cage here. When you are breathing in, it lowers, it contracts and lowers to create more space for the lungs to expand. And when you breathe out, it kind of rebounds up, making a smaller space for the lungs and the expiration. Okay, so that's the diaphragm. Then you have your pelvic floor muscles across the front here, and you've got 3 sets of pelvic floor muscles. You've got your transverse abdominis, which wraps around the front here. That's the main stabilizing muscle. And then you've got your internal and external obliques that kind of run like that. And then you've got your rectus abdominis, which is the more superficial 6-pack muscle down the middle. And then at the bottom here, kind of working in tandem with the diaphragm, it kind of attaches through like this, are your pelvic floor muscles sitting at the bottom here. So what's happening with your pelvic floor is affecting your diaphragm, and what's happening with your diaphragm is affecting your pelvic floor. And then at the back here, you've got some multidifidus muscles over here, which also come into the whole story. Then, of course, you've got the rib cage. The lungs sit underneath the rib cage. So the movement of the muscles and the bones together are what creates movement. And the thing with breathing is that there are a couple of places in the body that movement can happen. So let's just explore for a minute and see where your breathing and movement is going on. So what I'd like you to do is put one hand kind of on your chest and one hand on your belly. In fact, let me just grab a block to sit on, because this is always a nice way to do it. And if you have any questions, just throw them in the comments. Let's just start by seeing what our actual breathing strategy is. So we've got one hand on the chest and one hand on the belly. And what I'd like you to do is to just take a few breaths. Just take a few gentle breaths here. Okay? Just looking to see what our current breathing strategy is. And for those who are watching, I'm not sure if anyone's watching or watching on the replay, let me know in the comments what area of your body you feel is working the most when you breathe. Is your belly hand starting the motion? Is your chest hand doing most of the work? Where is the breath happening in your body? So just try it for a minute and check in and see what's going on there. Now, most people, when I ask them to do this, they will tell me that their belly hand is starting the breath motion, okay? That there's a lot of belly movement going on, and that their chest is usually quite static. There's not much moving going on. Or if there is movement in the breath, it's this kind of like up and down movement. happening here. Okay. So that is certainly how I was breathing a couple of years ago. I'd been told that belly breathing is the way to go. We should all be belly breathing. And while belly breathing definitely has a place, perhaps in a yoga practice or in calming down the nervous system, it is not the ideal way of breathing. If you think about breath from, I'm sorry, I'm going to take you back to school a little bit here. If you think of breath in terms of physics, in terms of volume and pressure exchange, okay, which is how we need to think of breath, because to take air in, we need to increase the volume and decrease the pressure so that the air can be pulled into the lungs, and so that we are increasing volume. And to breathe out, we want to increase the pressure, decrease the volume in the lungs, and get the air out of the body. Now, the thing with belly breathing, if the majority of your motion when you breathe is coming from your belly, all you are doing there is creating a shape change in the body. There's no volume change. The only volume change that can happen is in the lungs, which are sitting under the ribs. So what we want to try and move to in getting optimal breathing and learning how to breathe better is getting more movement through the rib cage in what we call a 360-degree movement of the ribs. The whole design of the rib cage indicates to us that this is where movement should happen. There's cartilage through the front here, and at the back you have the ribs attaching to the spine at the back, and these ribs can actually move up and down like this. So the design of the rib cage is telling us that we need more movement through what's called here the thoracic cavity, through your rib cage. But for many of us, because we've become such chronic belly breathers, I don't know, I couldn't even give you the reason why. Their alignment reasons, their stress reasons, their lack of movement reasons. As the rib cage gets more and more locked down, we find that the only motion we have available to breathe is kind of through this belly and through what's called the extraneous muscles, which are these neck muscles. So a lot of us are doing this lifting motion when we breathe, where the shoulders are coming up towards the ears rather than this 3D expansion. So what I mean about a 3D expansion, I mean we want the rib cage kind of opening and closing like an umbrella would, where you've got this sideways lateral movement, where you've got a front to back movement, because interestingly, the majority of our lung is actually at the back. And for most of us, our upper backs are so locked down, they're not moving anywhere, and they should be moving. With each breath we take, those ribs at the back here should be expanding back and closing, expanding back and closing. So we've got lateral movement, we've got front to back movement, and then there's also a very small kind of lifting through this breastbone and lowering through the sternum. Not much. It's different to this, which is kind of like an up and down motion of the neck as we're desperately trying to get more air in. Rather, it's what we call a little bit of flexion and extension of this upper back area. So let's give that a try, okay? Let's try and see if we can start to get a little bit more movement into the ribs. And then I'll show you some exercises to help you get more movement into the ribs, and then you can try and practice what is going on here. So what you can do is you can take, if anybody's watching, please just let me know if you can hear me okay, because I'd hate to do this entire webinar and nobody can hear a thing that I'm saying, okay? So while I wait for people to answer, you can grab a strap, or otherwise just use your hands, Okay, grab a strap or just use your hands. I'm going to use a strap, but you can also just take your hands and put them just around, just kind of like under your, sorry, I'm just checking the comments, just under your like bra strap level, okay? Put your hands, thumbs at the back here so that you can really feel your back ribs, and through the front. You can put your hands there, or you can take pantyhose or a belt. Anything that you can just give a little bit of tension and feedback through the lower ribs. So wrap your hands around like this. And I want you to just breathe in and try and see if you can get these ribs here to move out sideways, okay? So if you just have your hands around your ribs like this, let's start this time by breathing out. So breathe out, close off your ribs a little bit here, and now inhale. And even see, I don't want you to force in normal daily life, but just now for our purposes today, to get a little bit more motion through the ribs, I want to see if you can force them open at the bottom, just because it's perhaps not a movement that your ribs are used to doing. So let's try that again. Breathe out, close your ribs off so that it's like the closing of an umbrella. And now breathe in. And move them sideways. Okay, so that is the first dimension of the breath that we are looking for, is this lateral breathing. Feel the ribs coming sideways into your hands here, because what's super interesting, I'm using my trusty bucket that I've been using to clean the house, is that the ribs attach at the front here, okay, to the breastbone. And as I showed you earlier, they also attach to the back. So let me show you again here. They attach to the front, to the breastbone, or to the cartilage that's here. And cartilage is spongy, it moves, right? So we want to give it some input. And then it also attaches to the back, to the vertebra. So our ribs therefore have the ability to kind of, it's not the most ideal model, but we'll have to do, like a bucket handle. They have the ability to lift like that, to open like a bucket handle and create more space. And if you create more physical space, more growth and physical space to the rib cage, that is allowing more space and volume and expansion through the lungs that are sitting underneath. And unfortunately, most of us are locked in this very kind of shallow breathing pattern, where we're not getting all the air out of our lungs and creating as little volume as possible, which means that when we come to inhale, we're not really getting much volume either. We're working in a very narrow range of lung capacity potential. So what we want to do is, so what that means, right, is that often when you are listening, when you're in a class or a meditation and somebody's saying to take a deep inhale, right, I would go and push out my belly. I didn't actually know what taking a deep inhale required. Or that my ribs were even so locked down. What we mean by taking a deep inhale is that we want to get as much growth and expansion out of the rib cage as possible. So while it's awesome to learn about various breathing techniques for calming down your whole system, and if we have time, I'll go through some of them at the end. There's alternate nostril breathing and equal breathing, where you will breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, or 4, 7, 8, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 7, breathe out for 8. Those techniques are all wonderful. But if you don't have the movement ability to create a new shape in your body, then you're not getting the kind of benefit that you want out of those breathing techniques. And similarly, when you come to move or you come to exercise, we have this very small range of oxygen exchange going on in the body. And the body loves oxygen, okay? So let's try that one more time. We're going to put our hands around the rib cage here, and that's why I like you to start with exhaling. So breathe out. You can even cough all the air out. And then breathe in. And see if you could create some of that sideways expansion. Okay, so if anyone's watching, let me know in the comments if you are feeling some of that movement going on. Because we are going to move to looking at the back to front expansion of the body, and we'll start doing some exercises. The first thing I want to tell you about the back to front, okay? We want the growth happening sideways and back to front, kind of at the same time. But most of us are very locked down through the back. Part of the reason for that is an alignment element, in that many of us have this kind of little upward thrust of the chest for so many reasons, right, that we're not going to get into today. And if you've had any one-on-one sessions with me, you'll understand why. What we're really doing is trying to hide this what's called hyperkyphosis, or this excessive rounding of the upper spine. We're trying to hide that. So we do this, like your mom always told you, stand tall, which we think is shoulders back, shoulder blades back, rib cage up. What that does, however, is that it changes the position of all the bones in the body. While the posture may look good, it's changing the alignment, which means your body can't work in the way that it is meant to work. So when we have this rib thrusting, you can see I've created this excessive kind of C shape. There's more ribs at the back. There's more rib happening in the back than at the front, and you can see that my sternum is at a bit of an angle here. What we want to try and do, and this is a very important alignment tip, and it's probably going to feel super weird, okay? There's tension holding those ribs up. So what we want to do is just try and breathe out the tension and let those ribs drop back to normal position. And normal position of the ribs is that if you line up the bottom of the ribs with the top of the rib cage like this, they should kind of be stacked, right? We don't want this position here where the rib is out here and the hip joint is over there. We want them stacked over each other, and now the sternum is more neutral. Give that a try and let me know if you're watching on the replay, if by dropping your ribs that probably causes you to feel very, very hunched over. That's a separate problem. And we've got a different program and a different set of correctives to improve this hunching, this hyperkyphosis of the back. All we're doing is just rearranging our parts when we lift up like this. We're not actually fixing the hyperkyphosis problem. And if anything, we may even be making it worse. What we are certainly doing by what we call this rib thrusting, you can see I've got less kind of rib volume at the back. It's all in the front here. But if the majority of your lung capacity is at the back, you're stopping this expansion from happening when you breathe, because you've like shoved your rib cage forward and you've got a whole lot of tension at the back there. When I release my ribs down, see what's happening in the back. When I just blow out the air and release my ribs down, now you can see there's more ribs happening there. Okay, so now when I breathe in, have a look and see. I'm not sure if you can see on the camera. We're exhaling and just letting the rib cage sink, and then we're breathing in. You see how my ribs are moving back. They're expanding in volume at the back. So first movement tip, which is really an alignment tip, in getting this beautiful 360 motion through the rib cage is to work on our habit, and it really just is a habit of being a rib thruster. We want to just let those ribs drop to normal, or what's called a neutral position. And absolutely feel free to reach out to me. I do have a free half-hour session where I can help you through some of these posture and alignment issues. And I also have an alignment manual called Learn 5 Alignment Adjustments in 5 Minutes. I'll put a link to it that you can download, and it goes over a little bit in more detail about what the alignment tips are. But alignment is crucial. Just getting your bones where they are meant to be is already a huge thing. You may find now that when you just drop your ribs to a better position, forget what's happening at the top there, okay? That's a completely different issue. We'll deal with that another time. But now try your 3D rib expansion with those ribs down in a more neutral position. We don't want to be pulling them down with the abs, right? We just want to release some of the tension that's holding them up, and you may not even realize that you have any tension there at all. You're just so used to that tension that's holding them up. So even just dropping them down may feel like a bit of a calming down of your whole nervous system. So now from this ribs down position, let's start by breathing out. You can breathe out through your mouth or your nose if you want, but breathing in definitely through the nose. Breathe all the air out. Even cough it out if you need to, because we're not doing full exhales, okay? You need full exhales. Now breathe in. And see, perhaps there's more air being pushed into your back ribs because you've just physically changed the shape of your body to allow that motion to happen a little bit more. If you're watching on the replay, let me know, right? So that was the alignment tip. Drop the ribs. The next is another release. I love doing this because, don't know about you, but I'm definitely habitually, like a lot of women, a tummy sucker inner. We like to create this nice flat line, so we hold some tension down the front here, a little bit of excess tension to give a flat line, and also we often being given this message that we need to hold our abs tight all the time to stabilize the spine, okay? Simply not true. Our muscles just need, you're not holding your muscle tight all the time in your arm in case you need to open a door, right? Because our muscles need to be at a good resting tension so that when they need to do an action, when they need to respond, there's place for them to contract. That's the first thing. Your abdominals work very reflexively. They know what you're doing. The problem is that most of us have overridden this natural instinctive reflexive movement of the abs, and part of that overriding mechanism is this kind of cultural issue we have with having bellies and this need to hold a little bit of tension in all the time. There are a couple of things going on when we do that. First of all, again, it's just physics, right? For whatever mass you are sucking in here, whether it's the restrictive underwear that you're wearing or this constant tension that you have here, that displaces what's happening everywhere else, and it's creating what's called excess intra-abdominal pressure. So those contents are either going up, down, or forward, okay? Up would be a hiatal hernia. Forward could be the cause of a diastasis recti or abdominal separation. If you have it, you know it. And down is kind of pelvic prolapse, bladder issues that are going on. So that's just one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is by holding this excess tension, not asking you to like stick your belly all the way out, okay? That's another problem. No. There just has to be a normal resting tension where it's not just poof, but it's not tight either, okay? And I know I can catch myself during the day holding my belly tight. And the days when we used to be able to drive around and do stuff, I would try and give myself this cue that every time I came to a traffic light, I'd just give my belly permission to relax to normal resting tension. But what's happening with this tight belly in terms of breathing is, remember I said you've got a diaphragm, which is this big muscle over here sitting under your ribs. Another thing I want to say that we're given this message that belly breathing is good for us and belly breathing is the way to go because it's diaphragmatic breathing. All breathing is diaphragmatic breathing. If your diaphragm is not lowering and lifting, you're not breathing, okay? And certainly when we're doing this 3D rib breath, we need the tummy muscles to be at just a normal resting tension. And they do, on the inhale, they do lift out a little bit towards the end, but it's not this that so many of us are doing, where the breath is being led by the tummy. So we do need some resting tension there so that the diaphragm can come down to create more volume through the rib cage and the lungs. And then the belly just comes out a little bit towards the end. If we're holding our belly tight, we land up doing a lot of chest or extraneous breathing. And chest breathing is different to this 3D umbrella opening and closing motion of the ribs, which is what we are after. So if we have this chronic sucking in habit through our abs, then that diaphragm cannot drop nicely, which is what we want it to do on the exhale, which means we get this enormous, a shallow breath and a ton of pressure. And backache too, by the way. So the exercise that I like to do to start working through some of that is called an abdominal release. And all you do is you come onto your hands and knees. You come into what we call a bit of a neutral spine, where we're not too like that. We lift it here, and the ribs are up. The ribs are not forward like that. Again, we want the ribs to line up with the top of the hip bone, just like we did earlier. And even in this position, you may feel that there's tension through the tummy. So all I want you to do is just let that tension drop. Okay, and you get extra points if your belly touches the floor. So just let the belly relax. We're not pushing the belly out. Okay, there's a difference between pushing the belly out and just taking off that tension. You may find that the tension wants to come back and that it creeps back up again. So just let that tension release and start to get a sense of what it means to have normal resting tension through your abs. Super simple, right? Maybe just try and do a bit of that 3D breathing here as well. And see, by just releasing the tummy, just releasing that tension through the abs, you may be able to get more movement through the back ribs, I mean. Interestingly as well, in this abdominal release position, it's awesome if you've got hiccups. So hiccups or constipation, do an abdominal release. It's awesome for constipation too, because again, if we're holding our abs tight all the time, or we're wearing very tight clothes or restrictive underwear, like leave Spanx for like the special occasion, the friend's wedding or whatever, we should not be creating this restriction around our belly, because it's interfering with so many systems going on. And a big one is constipation, besides what it's doing to the breath. So the next exercise I want to teach you is, because so many of us are so tight through the back here, we're not getting this natural motion of the rib cage as we breathe and as we walk. There are muscles between each rib. They're what are called intercostal muscles sitting between each rib. And when we don't use the muscle, it starts to atrophy. That's just the state of the body, right? So if we're not 23,000 times a day getting this 3D motion through the rib cage, those muscles have been doing like nada for a very, very long time. Which is why it's pretty unhelpful when you're being told, breathe deep, like you're trying. moving, and so you'll end up just going and pulling it all in through the neck muscles, okay, which is not what we want. It's not creating the same benefit and endpoint, right? So often we need to start doing some exercises to get some more movement and blood flow through the muscles, particularly at the back. And I'll show you quickly one of my favorite exercises. So while I'm getting set up, maybe you can get set up too. Just grab a chair. I'm going to just grab a chair. Okay, and I'm going to grab a blanket, but you can also use a pillow or anything. What we are looking for is we want to sit towards the end of the chair, heels under the knees, and really take whatever you've got here and stick it in under the ribs. We want to really restrict the movement happening through the belly. We want to turn the belly off and also turn off some of that movement in the front ribs, okay? Then I want you to curl your back. As much as possible, curl your back. And it's also interesting here, you can see whether your back is just staying flat at the areas of your back, of your spine, of your upper spine that don't actually curl. Create as much of a C shape as you can through your spine. Extend your arms forward, okay, and then try and take some deep inhales and exhales here. We really want to stop that belly from coming in. So round your spine as much as you can. And you may feel that your shoulder blades are actually moving out, and what we want to be feeling is kind of a stretch through the back. So let me know how that feels and if you are able to get any rib movement through there. And if you're not really getting anything happening there, then just let me know. I have some other exercises that I can show you as well that do start to get more expansion through the rib cage. But I think the easiest thing really to change is to just get this alignment point right, because again, if we've got this lift, that's stopping any expansion happening at the back. There's one other way that I like to do this back rib expansion. If you have the flexibility for it, and if you don't have a prolapse, this is an awesome way to do it. You can just come down onto your haunches. I like to put my half dome under my heels so that I'm comfortable here and I'm in a good squat. Okay, and just squatting is also just amazing for every part of your body. So if you're comfortable like this, try like this. Put your hands behind your back and you pull your hands down to stop your neck muscles from coming on. Round your spine as much as you can. And then try that breathing here. So what we're doing in these positions is that we're closing off the option for air to come in anywhere else, which means that it has to be sent to the back, and see how that feels. So let's go back to our original position after we've done a couple of those mobilizations. Let's go back to our original position. Try some 360-degree breathing again and see if we can get more of this umbrella opening expansion through the whole rib cage, less happening through the belly, less happening through the neck. It is a process, so any little shift is already going to make a big difference. So let's put our hands around the ribs. My thumbs at the back here so I can see what's happening with my back ribs. Feeling through the front, okay. Relax through the neck. Get your ribs down. Please don't pull them down with your abs. Just just let them relax down. Good. And then I always like to start with the exhale. So breathe out, close your ribs at the bottom, and breathe. And breathe out. And breathe. And let me know how that feels. Okay, let's do our test that we did at the bottom, at the beginning. One hand on the chest, one hand on the belly. Try and put, if to be a belly breather, and that's all that is a habit, okay? You can put a little bit of pressure on the belly hand to stop it from coming first. As I said, we need this relaxed tension through the belly so that the diaphragm can drop. The belly does come out a little bit, but only towards the end of the inhale. We don't want it to start that process, okay? We want the process to start here, through the rib cage. And I like to start it on the lateral movement, because a lot of people, once they get that feeling of lateral, it's like, oh, I can do that, okay? You may have to force it a little bit at first, but eventually, if you just practice this for a couple of minutes a day, it will start to become the normal, natural, organic way that you breathe. And then once you've got that, you can start layering on some other awesome things, because just a little aside, taking you to the next phase of all of this, is that you cannot get a deep, strong, optimal abdominal contraction if your body is not rib breathing. So today we're just focusing on the rib breathing, so that when you do your meditation class and they say breathe deep, you know exactly what breathe deep means, okay? And just throughout the day as well, you may also feel you get a little bit of a head rush, that your body's not used to taking in so much oxygen. But already just doing this little practice here, I can feel that, I don't know if it's because I'm talking to you lovely ladies, I'm sure it is, but I can feel that my mood has already lifted a bit, because taking in the right level of oxygen is very calming, what's called down-regulating for your whole nervous system, okay? So let's try here. Get that breath going one more time. Breathe out and breathe in. Belly comes up towards the end, and please stop. The end of your range is when these neck muscles start to come on, and try and lift. What happens, these are called secondary breathing muscles, okay? Our primary breathing muscles are our internal and external intercostal muscles and the diaphragm and maybe the abdominals too. But when you're breathing, when you're not getting movement through the ribs, right, so you're getting the expansion like that, all you're doing when you're breathing through the neck muscles is you're just lifting and lowering the rib cage. Again, no volume or pressure exchange. And breath is about volume and pressure exchange. Take you back to grade 10 physics. So I hope you found that useful. What I will give you quickly just to end off is I'll go over those three sort of breathing calming techniques, okay? So part of the whole breath is the using it to breathe and calm you, which is awesome. But what's even more awesome, okay, is if you are using your breath optimally all day long. So that's the majority of what I've taught you, right? Let's just go through a couple of breathing techniques. The one that I love the most is alternate nostril breathing, and this can really be used just to calm down, and I know I certainly need a ton of calming down right now. You put your middle two fingers on between your eyebrows over here. You put your thumb on one nostril and let me turn it sideways so you can see it looks pretty weird. Your thumb on one nostril and your ring finger on the other nostril. Right, so I want you to close off the left nostril with the left ring finger, okay, and then you breathe out through the nose. So my thumb is off the nose. You breathe out, breathe in through the nose, greedy rib expansion. Close the nose, hold for a second or two, and then open the other finger. Breathe in through the left nostril. Seal them both down and breathe out through the right nostril. Awesome. My other favorite one is the 4-7-8. If breathing in for 4 is too much, okay, if even going for 4 is taking you too much into your neck muscles to start with, which it may, we've got to get out of the habit of breathing with these neck muscles. It's causing a ton of upper body tension, neck, jaw, headache tension by the constant breathing with these muscles. So if breathing in for 4, if for now breathing in for 4 does take you to these neck muscles, then just breathe in for 2. I don't want you going, try and look in the mirror and make sure when you breathe, there'll be a little bit of expansion, but I don't want those ears coming up, those shoulders coming up towards the ears. So that is my Breathe Right Now workshop. Let me know, shoot me any questions. This is a wonderful, wonderful place to start. And I love that breathing is so much in our control. And what I love about movement coaching is really all we're doing is giving the body different options and ways to move. And the body is so incredible. When it's shown a better way, it does it. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing. And please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to hop on the line and chat with you or look at what's happening with your posture in my free half-hour session. Please, I'm here for you guys. And I just want to thank every one of you who is in this group. And I hope you're enjoying the classes and hope to be feeling better and breathing easier next week and getting back into some classes. So shoot me any questions and have a lovely, lovely evening and rest of your day. And